For 15 years, I made my living as a land surveyor, the kind who disappears into the wilderness for weeks at a time, preferring the company of pines and silence to people. That all changed one winter in the Idaho backcountry, and it wasn't the snow or the isolation that did it. It was the thing that was already there, waiting for me to make a mistake. I'd been hired to map out property lines near the Clearwater region, a spot so remote it took me a full day of hiking just to find a decent place to pitch my tent. I checked in with the ranger station, filed my route, packed enough supplies for a week, and on the first day, everything went exactly to plan. I found 3 markers, logged my data, and was back at camp before the sun dipped below the ridgeline. The forecast had called for light snow, nothing out of the ordinary for the season. But by the second morning, the weather had other ideas. A heavy blanket was already falling, and the visibility was starting to drop. My next marker was only a mile away, so I made the call to push forward. That decision still haunts me, not because of what I found, but because of what I failed to notice until it was too late. The terrain turned treacherous fast. Every step was a gamble on hidden ice and jagged rocks disguised by the fresh powder. I was navigating a steep embankment when my boot hit a patch of ice I never saw coming. One second I was upright, the next I was sliding, grasping at branches that snapped in my grip. I managed to stop myself against a thick root, but the jolt that shot through my right ankle told me I was in trouble. Standing up, a groan escaped my lips before I could stifle it. I couldn't put my full weight on it, and I knew with a sickening certainty that I was hours from camp with an injury that made every step a punishment. Furious at my own stupidity, I abandoned the rest of the survey. No marker was worth being stranded. I clawed my way back up to the main trail, each step a slow, grinding agony. That's when I noticed something that didn't belong. A set of boot prints was pressed into the snow ahead of me, coming from the deeper woods to my left and heading in the same direction I was limping. They were fresh, the edges still crisp despite the falling snow. I assumed it was a hunter or someone from the landowner's crew. But as the light began to fade, I started hearing sounds from behind me, a rhythm that was too deliberate to be the wind. At first, I told myself it was just the forest settling, but the rhythm matched my own limping gait. Step, drag, pause. Step, drag, pause. I'd stop, and after a beat of silence, the sound would stop too. I'd start moving, and a few seconds later it would resume. The forest was dense, and I couldn't see anything behind me. My heart hammered in my chest. I was hobbled, vulnerable, unable to run if the threat became real. I had no choice but to keep moving, my head on a swivel. Then I heard a metallic clink off to my left, a sound like a rock hitting a steel post. It was out of place, a man-made noise in a place where no man should have been. The sound distracted me, and it was only then I realized I hadn't seen those boot prints in a while. I looked down at the trail. They were gone. I spun around, searching for where they might have veered off, and my blood ran cold. Through the trees, running parallel to the trail, was another set of tracks. Someone had been walking alongside me, just out of sight, matching my pace for who knows how long. Fear took the wheel. I did the one thing you should never do. I called out, asking if someone was there. Silence. 20 seconds of nothing but the wind. My ankle screamed with every step, but I forced myself to move faster. I was close to camp now, a fact I clung to like a lifeline. I was just about to break through the tree line when a heavy branch snapped behind me. It wasn't the gentle crack of a dead tree falling. It was the sound of something heavy, something intentional. I didn't look back. I limped into my camp, the darkness closing in around me. I practically dove into my tent, my mind racing. I started throwing my gear into my pack, the realization dawning on me that the thin nylon walls of this tent offered no protection. Before I could finish, I heard them. Footsteps, crunching in the snow, not approaching, but circling. A slow, deliberate patrol around my tent.
I sat frozen, waiting for the moment the fabric would be torn open. The circling went on for what felt like an eternity, and then it stopped. I held my breath, listening for the retreat. There was none, just silence. I couldn't wait any longer. I grabbed my pack, took a deep breath, and unzipped the tent. I stepped out into the snow and looked toward the trees. A scream caught in my throat. A man was standing there, half hidden in the shadows. He was ancient, gaunt, his skin a sickly pallor. He looked like something that shouldn't be alive. He just stared at me, his eyes hollow. I held up my hands. "I don't want any trouble," I said, my voice cracking. He didn't move. The staring contest felt like hours. Then, in a voice like gravel, he said, "You're a lucky man." He turned and vanished into the dark forest. "You're a lucky man." I still don't know if he was stating a fact or making a threat. The rest of the night is a blur of pain and fear. I packed the rest of my gear and left, hiking through the dark with a sprained ankle, too terrified to stop. Later, the doctor told me it was a miracle I hadn't done permanent damage by walking on it. I reported the encounter, but nothing ever came of it. I still do remote work, it's my livelihood, but I haven't taken a solo winter job since. That night taught me a hard truth. In the wilderness, the greatest threat isn't always the weather. I've spent my whole life in Alaska, kiting trips through the backcountry, thinking I knew every danger the wilderness could throw at me. 3 years ago, I learned I didn't know the half of it. My boyfriend at the time, Randy, was the only person I trusted as much as myself out there. We'd planned a 4-day snowmobile trip between 2 state cabins, a route we had done before. The first day was perfect. We reached the second cabin by late afternoon, ate our terrible freeze-dried meals, and played cards. The next morning, I woke to a blizzard that shouldn't have existed. The forecast had been clear. We had enough food to wait it out, but we decided to push through. That was the first mistake. The second was mine alone. The wind was a solid wall. Randy took the lead, and I followed his taillights, relying on him to navigate. One moment he was moving fine, the next his snowmobile had flipped, pinning him underneath. I was off my machine and at his side in seconds, but it was already too late. His leg was twisted beneath him at an angle that made my stomach heave. He was in shock, but calm. I tried to get him on the back of my sled, but he was a big guy, 6'2", and solid muscle. In the deep snow, the machine was barely manageable by myself. He slid off twice, the second time with a scream that I still hear in my nightmares. He told me to stop. He wasn't asking. We both knew the only option. I had to leave him. I had to go for help. I pulled out the satellite phone, my hands shaking so bad I could barely press the buttons. I got a connection, but I couldn't be sure the message went through. I set him up with every layer I had, marked his coordinates on my GPS, and he told me to be careful. I left him there, alone in the snow. I rode for what felt like an hour, navigating by GPS and feel. The storm was a white curtain. After a while, things started to feel wrong. The landmarks weren't matching up. The terrain felt foreign. Then I saw smoke curling through the trees to my left. I angled toward it, hoping I'd found one of the cabins, but the structure was wrong. It was smaller, rougher, half buried in a snowdrift. A warm glow came from a window, and smoke rose from the chimney. Smoke meant a person. A person meant a radio. I killed the engine and waded to the door. I knocked, but no one answered. I tried the handle. It was unlocked. I pushed it open and stepped in. The heat hit me first. A wood stove crackled in the corner. A bedroll lay on the floor next to a half-eaten can of food with a spoon still in it. It looked like whoever lived here had just stepped out. I called out, announcing my presence, but there was no reply. I tried the satellite phone again. Nothing. I stood there, warming my hands, the weight of Randy's situation pressing down on me. I had to go back out there, but I needed to warm up first. I was about to leave when something on the shelf caught my eye. binocles, a folded map, and a notebook. I unfolded the map. It was a trail map of our route with sections circled in marker. Dates were written next to them, going back 2 winters. I picked up the notebook. My blood ran cold. It was a log, but not of the weather. It was descriptions of people, what they wore, which direction they were heading, a chilling record of everyone who had passed through this area. A sense of wrongness washed over me. This wasn't a safe place. It was an observation post. I put the notebook down and headed for the door. I was reaching for the handle when it happened. A scream erupted from underneath the floorboards. A woman's scream, raw and terrified. It wasn't a cry for help. It was pure, primal agony. I didn't think. I just ran. I burst out the door, fired up my snowmobile, and tore out of there, not daring to look back. I never saw the cabin again.
I eventually made it to the real cabin and raised help on the emergency radio. They sent a helicopter for Randy. He was hypothermic, his leg shattered, but he was alive. When the conditions cleared, I told the authorities about the cabin and the scream. They sent a team out. They found nothing. No structure matching my description, no tracks, nothing. The officer I spoke to actually suggested I'd hallucinated it from stress and cold. I lost my temper. There are only 3 explanations, and none of them offer any comfort. I hallucinated it, it was real, and I left someone to die, or it was a trap. Randy and I broke up a year later, not because of this, but the incident changed me. The thought that I might have left a person screaming for help under that floor, or that I was seconds away from being that person, still haunts me. It's the silence of the unknown that's the worst part.